5:30 or almost 5:30, so we will start our regular meeting with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton. Commissioner Barwick. Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Stecklin. Mayor Absher.
Here. Mr. Fowler, would you, I teased Steve as being so ignorant as to sit in the front row that I'm teasing, that he had the honor, because that's about as far as I can see because of these lights with everybody. But I'm pretty sure he'd be pleased to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you not, sir? All right. Flag's over here. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Steve. Okay, item number 3 on our agenda is a public comments audience to visitors. I want to remind everyone this is subject to ordinance number 3128 and amended by 3134 pertaining to the rules of conduct. This part of the public comments is meant for just general addressing to the council. We will have another period of this after our State of the City presentation at the very end. So if there are questions that you have pertaining to some of that already, even before you hear the presentation, you'll certainly have an opportunity at the end to ask the council those questions. So this would be sort of just like for a regular meeting. So is there, I know there's at least one that's made themselves known, Mr. Gaddis. You want to just go ahead, Donnie? Now, Donnie, you got 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to warn you at 4.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay?
I'm just going to sit down so I can see my papers. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I've got a few things to say tonight. And I start out usually with a scripture verse, and this is my scripture verse. This is Zechariah 4:6. It says, and they're up there on the screen reporting on progress, and everybody's interested in progress. And so I've got written down here, do you desire peace, prosperity, and progress? And then this scripture verse, you've probably heard it before, it says, the Lord himself says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And so if you want peace, it ain't going to come from some kind of willpower or policies. I mean, those things those are to be utilized. But the progress and the prosperity and the peace that you're looking for, that I'm looking for, that this world is looking for, that this city needs, it comes by, the Lord says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. Okay. Now, one of the second points, I feel like any time this city has a what would you say, a benchmark or whatever where we're trying to how would you say that, grade ourselves, or how we're doing. It just come to my mind several times that the mayor, Bob Butler, needs to be remembered and recognized as far as like any time that this city, things are gauged to this city, for his investment for this city. That's something that's, how do I write that down? The Bob Butler's investment in this town, there needs to be a remembrance, and his memory needs to be honored. It needs just to be honored and kept in place as far as any of the progress or what happens with this city, the progress, peace, and prosperity of the city. He needs to be remembered. But remember, it comes not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. Okay. The second thing I've got written down here, there's ways to do that. And one of the things I've mentioned is Psalms 119, 104. It talks about the word of the Lord. And the word of the Lord gives you an understanding so you can avoid false ways. And so that's one of the things. In order for there to be, and I know I'm speaking quickly and everything. This is a little bit of a difficult situation because I don't have my, a thing to hold my papers and stuff. And so, but anyway, avoiding false ways is critical to making progress. Are you following me? And so Psalms 119 says, the understanding of the Lord helps you to avoid false ways. So it takes more than just being in a good status with some kind of a club or your membership status in some kind of club or whatever. No, you have to, it's about doing right and wrong. The first commandment is you love the Lord first. That means right and wrong before your social status or before you're getting along with your club members and doing what they want you to do. No, you do what's right first. Remember, progress comes not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. And then I've got these other things written down. Where the Lord's words are spoken, there He is. Where deception and falsehood is spoken, well, there's going to be negative forces there. Are you following me? Where the Lord's words are spoken, that's where He's going to be. So your progress and prosperity. Can you hear this? Are you guys awake? Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. Where the Lord's words are spoken, He's going to be there. Can you hear me? Okay. 1 minute left. Okay. So I've got down here, it says, draw near to Him and He will draw near to you. That's James 4:8. Now I've got written down here, avoid false ways. And then I've got down here, this is Deuteronomy 14:29. Be good to strangers and the fatherless in the community. I've got a lot more stuff to say, but anyway, I'll read this scripture verse. This is all about scripture. This is a lot of scripture verses, but that's where the Lord's going to be. Where the scripture verses, where His words declare, that's where He's going to be. And it says here, it says, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, which are within your gates, in the gates of Marion. When people get to Marion, we need to be good to them. Sometimes they get here and it's, it's not right how they got here, but after they get here, we better be good to them if you want progress. Okay, let me finish this. And the fatherless and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thy hand which thou do. So anyway, that's my timer, but okay, I'm going to say this too. Progress, I put here, you will have to fight for it. It's just not automatic. You're going to have to fight for progress, and I put, you want it to be America or China. It ain't automatic. It's automatically going to go the wrong way. All right.
Okay, does anybody else like to speak? You're going to have to speak up if you do. I literally can see Steve. That's it. That's why he got volunteered for the Pledge of Allegiance. Anybody else? And incidentally, I failed to mention, we have 2 microphones on both aisles here, about the same place. The other one's right over here before the railing. Okay, last call. Anybody else want to ask a question or speak? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, our consent agenda, of which we have items A through F tonight. Before I ask for a motion on that, would any of the commissioners like any item or sub-item A through F removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately? Anybody from the audience like any of these items removed from consent agenda and voted upon separately? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
I'd make a motion that we would accept the consent agenda as given, A through F.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on these items, any item? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Under new business, item number 5, we have 4 items under economic development. Item A, it would be my motion to approve the purchase of 1,115 Midway Court for $20,000.
I would second that.
Okay, any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Item 5B, it's also my motion to approve the purchase of 1206 West Concord for $18,000.
I'll second.
Any questions on this item? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb, Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 5C, my motion to approve ordinance 3731, an economic development loan agreement with Whimsy.
I'll second.
Any questions on this item? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 5D, my motion to approve ordinance 3732, which is a residential TIF redevelopment agreement with Bryn Lane Properties.
I would second that.
Any questions on this item? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item number 6, Public Works, Commissioner Steckland.
Yes, grab that. All right, we received 3 bids on this. This is on the Van Buren Sewer Project. So I would make a motion then that we accept the low bid of $130,691 from J.M. Jones from Thompsonville, Illinois, to do the work on the Van Buren Sewer Project. I'll second that motion.
Okay, any questions or discussion on this item?
Just one thing to point out, this came in 58,000 under bid, or under our estimate, not under bid, but under estimate.
All right. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 6B, Commissioner Steckland.
All right, I make a motion to approve the purchase of security cameras at the wastewater treatment plant from ProTech for the amount of $10,225.86. There is a little description in there if you're interested in where they're going.
I will second his motion.
Okay, any questions on this?
This, John, will cover the majority of the facility out there, correct?
Should cover basically everywhere, yes.
I see the map now, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay?
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 7A, Doug.
I would propose that we approve ordinance 3733, authorizing a lending agreement with Banterra Bank to finance the purchase of new communication equipment for the police department.
I would second that.
Just for you guys in the audience, we already approved, I think at the last meeting, purchasing this equipment. Then we went out to bid and get the best deal we could to finance the equipment. So that's what this was. Any questions or discussion on this item 7A? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay?
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Okay, gentlemen, if you guys want to exit the stage until it's your turn to present so that you guys can see the presentation, we'll get started with the State of the City presentation. So guys, just give us a minute here to get situated. Oh, that's better. I can see some of you now all of a sudden. What a joy it is after 15 or so very, very long months to be back in the Civic Center. This place is a jewel of the City of Marion, and it's a great venue, and I feel so fortunate to be back in here tonight. This report, if you will, on progress that the council's making and projects that we're working on was intended when we were sworn in to be an annual event. It just so happens to be that the timing of the calendar between our inauguration, our swearing in, and that 1 year, by that time the pandemic was in full swing, and we were very limited on how many people we could have in any one place, much less the Civic Center, and so we were not able to do that last year. And I really want to give a thank you to Commissioner Stecklin, who recognized that as soon as the governor announced that on last Friday we would be opening back up for Phase 5 in the reopening plan, that would be perfect timing for us to visit back with you. And instead of having 1 year's worth of projects to discuss with you, we've got 2 full years. And so we've got quite a bit of information and to present to you tonight. And we're so thankful that you're here and that you joined us. I also want to thank Josh and the Civic Center staff for hosting us tonight. Very much appreciated. Let me just lay out a little bit and frame what tonight's presentation will be like and the flow of it, so you've kind of got a feel for that. Next slide, Cody. And if you hear me saying Cody, next slide, or back one slide or whatever, that's my Chief of Staff, Cody Moak, that's back in the sound booth back there that's directing the PowerPoint here. So we're just going to briefly look back over the last 2 years and some of the things that we passed legislatively, look at some of the progress that is a result of those legislative moves, and then we're going to give you a view of the future on some of the projects that some of which you know about, some of which have been ongoing projects for quite some time, and just try to give you an update on that conversationally. Go back one slide there, if you don't mind. So the second part is each commissioner, and I want to remind everybody that doesn't deal with this every day, in the commission form of government of which our city council has been formed under for well over 100 years. It's one of the 4 or 5 different forms of government that can be enacted in municipalities in the state of Illinois. Is quite unique compared to most other towns. Commission form of government is in the minority. It's in some ways a throwback to the way things were 100 plus years ago in the state of Illinois. In Marion's case, in my opinion, this form of government works very, very well for the city of Marion. But what that entails, and it's important, and especially in the context of what we're doing tonight, each member of the city council, by statute, by law, has certain areas that they're responsible over, not just overseeing, but really the day-to-day operating of the city government. Now, some of the titles of those commissionerships are a throwback to what they were 100 years ago, and they have morphed over the years, and some have some more responsibilities, if you will, than what the statute calls for. But it's important that you understand that whatever goes on in the city is really incumbent upon the entire city council. Each chunk of the government operates under a specific commissioner by statute and by our convention, by our history. And like I said, I think it works very, very well. But I'm proud of these commissioners. I'm proud of what they've accomplished individually, and I'm certainly proud of what we've accomplished collectively. So that's going to be part 2, as you'll be hearing from the 4 commissioners about their specific chunks of city operations and let you know what's been going on in their departments. And then part 3, we'll talk a little bit, actually quite a bit, about downtown revitalization, some internal updates on some of that. We've got some pictures and videos and things to show you that surround the mall and what is planned for the mall development. And then we'll have some closing remarks at the end. And then, like I said, we'll have a question and answer period. So I'm leading this off. Then the commissioners will have the middle part. And then I'll come back and visit with you again and go over some more stuff. So as far as a look back on the last couple of years, I want to make darn sure that everybody understands this piece. It's very important to me that all of these things that you're seeing tonight, one slide at a time, it's almost a shame in a way because we're going to be clicking through some of it relatively quickly because of being responsive and respectful of your time. But it's really a tragedy in some ways because you do not get the scale of the manpower and the time that it took to get each one of these things off the ground and to where we're at today with some of these projects. And you certainly don't get, because I'm either up here talking about them or one of the commissioners is talking about it, you do not get an appropriate feel for all of the people in the city that work for you, for the City of Marion, supported by your tax dollars, that put their time, their effort, their passion, not for a paycheck, but in order to move our city forward. So I guess what my point is to all of you, it's certainly not, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, it's certainly not the mayor's accomplishment. It's not even entirely the city council's accomplishment, but we should give great credit to the men and women who work for the City of Marion. One of the questions that I'm asked, I just feel like I got to say this, that I'm asked most frequently is what surprises you about being mayor, or what didn't you expect? And one of my comments to that, one of my responses to that question is just how competent and passionate that the people that work for the City of Marion truly are. Now, that's not to say that I thought they were dispassionate or that they were not competent, but you just don't know. For any of you that started a new job or started to work with a new group of people, you just don't know. You make lots of assumptions and you figure it out when you get there. So what I figured out when I got there is just how good all these folks really, really are. And I just want to make that point, is that every slide that you see here is the accumulated aggregate effort of so many people. And it's almost a shame that we fly through them as quickly as we're going to have to fly through them. One of the points that we want to make on the next slide is that Marion is absolutely open for business. Marion has always had, or as long as I've been around, a extraordinary reputation for being business friendly. One of the things that I made in a comment in my speech when I announced my candidacy for this office was that we had to be more than business friendly. We had to be entrepreneurial in government. And what I meant by that was that we could not simply wait on opportunities to come to Marion, that we had to seek out opportunities on our own and seek out those businesses that wanted to locate their jobs and the families that represented those jobs to Marion. And so this has been a hard slog, I'll be honest with you, especially the last 15 months of a pandemic. But even during that time, we've made significant progress. There's been lots of small businesses that have been created, too numerous, frankly, for me to enumerate tonight. And that's important because it's 95% of all the jobs that are created in the United States are by companies that are less than 10 or 20 jobs. So in no way do I ever want to say those are not important, and we continue to support in each and every way possible every business of every size that wants to locate to Marion. They are all so important. But the ones that we're going to highlight tonight, some of which you may have heard about already, two of which is evident by, you can see the construction going out in front of what was Illinois Center Mall, is Texas Roadhouse. That's underway. There's been several other restaurants. One is adjacent to it, which is Popeyes, that is already there. Texas Roadhouse is a pretty good size operation, and they will be hiring, I've got down here on this slide 100 jobs. I've been told it's 200 part-time jobs. So that's going to be coming. Their opening date is in October, and they are working fast on that project as we speak. One of the biggest accomplishments, really in terms of just pure numerical number of jobs, is ReaderLink. Now I want to tell you what ReaderLink is. I didn't know what it was until we started pursuing them and they started pursuing Marion. It is the largest distributor of hardback, trade, and paperback books in North America. Now the first question I had in my mind is great. So books, aren't those going out of style? Isn't everybody using electronic devices? Is anybody buying a paperback book anymore? Well, the question to that, or the answer to that question, is a resounding yes. This company's growing by leaps and bounds. And in effect, many companies have gotten out of that space, and ReaderLink has filled that void. And so they are a growing company, and interestingly, they've told us that their business is up significantly since the pandemic started. So I don't know what it is about being locked down in your home and paperback books, but apparently that's a thing. So we're very excited for that. And I just want to take an opportunity at this point to call out, and I don't know where Glenn is sitting, so Glenn, if you could wave your hand or stand for me would be even better. Glenn Clarida, are you in the house? Glenn's right over here, to my left, to your right. Glenn, I offered a position when we came into the office and sort of cobbled together two different job descriptions for him. One was economic development and one was municipal planning. Glenn spends a great deal of his time on both. I don't know how that splits exactly, but Glenn is a bulldog, and he latches onto stuff and does not let go, all for the benefit of Marion and its citizens, and it's been that way, I think, since 1965, Glenn, since you started working as a contractor in the engineering business for the City of Marion. But when we talk about all these different developments, and frankly, there's a few more, there's at least two more that I had hoped we would have in the bag and I could present to you tonight that have a significant number of jobs and will be impactful to our area, but we just don't have those ready that we can disclose yet. But matter of fact, Glenn's got a meeting on one of those tomorrow. So Glenn, thank you for working so hard these last 2 years. It's been, like I said, it's been a hard slog, but it's certainly starting to bear fruit for the city. We appreciate you. Again, look back before I turn it over to the commissioners for their department update. You may recall in the fall of 2019, again, pre-pandemic, I proposed a plan to the city council that I called 2020 Vision that consisted of four main elements. The biggest portion of that was changing in part how the city funded its services. Like most, if not all, as a matter of fact, at my last count, there were only 14 cities before we changed in the state of Illinois out of about 1,300 municipalities that did not charge a property tax on their property owners. I somewhat controversially recommended that we eliminate the city's portion of the property tax starting in the following year, which was the last tax bill that you paid last summer. Keeping in mind, those are always a year paid backwards in what they call in arrears. So what you get this summer is actually for 2020, and so on and so on. That saved, on average, about 7.5% of your property tax bill. That came at the cost, frankly, of increasing our home rule sales tax rate. That had a unintended effect when the pandemic hit. And we'll get to that. I'll let Mr. Patton discuss that a little bit instead of stealing some of his thunder. But that elimination of those property taxes have saved the citizens of Marion and the business people of Marion about $4 million to date, roughly. The second thing was, as part of those funds that were generated by that sales tax, was the goal, which had been set, all of these had been set as strategic goals by the commissioners themselves. This is what we would like to do: property tax relief, economic revitalization, downtown revitalization, and school safety officers among them. And so that's an expensive proposition, and the goal is figure out how to fund that. So this sales tax that's paid, I'm proud to say now in year 2, we have got armed security officers, sworn officers, Marion Police Department officers in every school in the district. And that hopefully the benefits to that are obvious, but if not, I feel a lot better in today's environment that our students, our children, and our teachers and our staff are better protected in the event of a calamity. Another big part of that, which you'll see much later when I come back on stage, but I'll just say that a big portion of what you will see is being funded by that sales tax, primarily being funded by that sales tax, and that was the third element of that 2020 vision, which is revitalization and economic development. That's not only benefiting the downtown, but all of town, but you'll see a lot of it as it pertains to old downtown here in just a little bit. And lastly, as a plank to that 2020 vision, was reinvesting, which was desperately needed, into our, what at the time we called code enforcement. We renamed that department as part of this to Building and Code Services, because frankly, the enforcement thing sounds a little bit heavy-handed and maybe was received by some people that we needed to technically we needed to enforce some things on, but it was much easier to try to talk them into it maybe than come with a heavy hand. So we even renamed that department. We added a director to that department, which it had not had for a few years. And we probably will be considering adding more to that department as time moves on, because this encompasses everything from rental inspections to commercial inspections to nuisance abatement. So that's things like yard height, trash in yards, abandoned vehicles, and smattering of all kinds of other local ordinances and state ordinances that have to be enforced. And Tim Stotler, I think I saw you, but I don't know where you sat. So if you could stand up and be acknowledged. Tim is not our new director now. He's been there for quite a while. Where are you at? Back in the back. Tim, you've done a great job leading your department. I think everybody in town can see the effort of the cleanup that's going on, and that's not just you, that's the street department too. And with that, I want to also call out Doug Phillips, who is our street department superintendent, and I don't know where Doug's at. Where's Doug? He's back there by Tim. How about that? Doug is indispensable to me and to the city. It's not my job, or it's not my department's job, and what a wonderful job they've done to date helping clean up our city. So that's kind of the look at the last 2 years, and now I'm going to turn it over to each commissioner. Jim Webb is going to be our first one. Jim is the street department superintendent. Doug works for him, and also over the cemetery. So streets and cemetery is the responsibility of Commissioner Jim Webb, and Jim will be talking to us about his department. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say it's truly an honor to be able to be a commissioner in the City of Marion. It's my hometown, and I just love this town, and just have a bunch of great people working, as the mayor said. And tonight I'm going to talk just a little bit about streets in the cemetery. My part won't take too long, but we do maintain over 100 miles of streets in the City of Marion, so that's quite a bit of streets and all the issues that go along with it. The grave sites is in excess of 10,000. I've heard it maybe it's close to 18,000, so a lot of grave sites to maintain as well. The first slide is the road projects, and you can see we've got the roundabout. That was finished in the last couple of years out by the Love's truck stop. That was about a $1.3 million project. And all these projects I'm going to mention, some's partially federal funded, some state, some local, so and even through our TIF funds. So I won't go into that for each one, but that's just a combination of funding for each one. The next project, if you go clockwise, the State Street to Fair Street sidewalk project. That'll be new sidewalks put on the north side of Route 13 there in front of the pool, and it'll go from State Street to Fair Street. We find that we have a lot of people walking out in that area, pedestrians, especially during tournament time for baseball and stuff. So trying to make it safer and have a place for people to walk safely. The next one's the Westminster expansion. That will run from Carbon Street over to the new bridge that we're looking at doing a project. The state of Illinois is looking at putting a new bridge over the interstate. So this Westminster expansion will hook onto the new bridge, and then we have the south leg of Halfway Road by the Pepsi plant. So that'll make a nice roadway around there. So the next one would be the 5th Street traffic signals. This project's about $675,000. It's basically they're just west of the original Dairy Queen. That intersection, there's some new development that's going to go to the south. So, but it'll also increase the safety of the buses that are trying to enter onto Old Route 13 each morning. So that's a congested area. So, and then the last project is the Williamson County Parkway Outer Drive turn lane there by the Harley-Davidson shop. And that's been a high accident area. It's kind of the way that's kind of a skewed intersection, and we've had a lot of accidents. So we're reaching into some safety funds we can get with the state and try to improve that intersection. So next slide. Sidewalks. We got miles and miles of sidewalks in town. We've got an aggressive program, and you'll see that's kind of a busy slide, but the green is the new sidewalks that we've done. We've used some contract, but a lot of it we've done ourselves, trying to save money, and we've done it with our own crews. So those areas in red, that's the bad sidewalks that we're trying to prioritize, and we can't do them all at once. And we get probably, I see the complaints come through. We probably get more complaints on sidewalks than anything. So we're trying to prioritize the worst part and get those done first. And then the blue areas is what's been out there a while, but still in good shape. So thankfully, we don't have to redo them all. So, but be patient with us as we work on the sidewalks. Cost savings. This is only a list of some of what we do as a street department, but it's areas that we can do ourselves in-house and we can save money. We do our own manhole and storm drain issues, repair them as need be, or cleaning. We have a vac truck that we can work in those areas. We do our own pavement striping and crosswalks. That's something, a career I had in times past with the county. We always contracted that out, but the street department has stepped up and saved money with our own pavement striping crew. We maintain all the city vehicles, whether it be a street truck, a fire engine, or a police car. We maintain all that, and we got some savings through that as well. We do crack filling of the streets, street sweeping, snow removal, debris removal. We do a lot of the own asphalt maintenance ourselves as well. Of course, we have many traffic signals, 32, and we have about 600 street lights in Marion, so plenty to keep us busy there. Street sign production, that's one thing. Instead of just, if we need a new stop sign, instead of ordering it and paying top dollar, we can make those in our own sign shop, so there's a savings there of about $60,000 a year. And of course, any of the concrete and sidewalk repairs we do in-house as much as we can, so they do a good job there. Beautification of public property. We've got a team right now. I think there's 3 of them. We're going to try to ramp up to about 5 individuals, and we're going around trying to pick up the trash. There's areas that needs to be weed eated, and trying to do this just to beautify the town. You're going to see a lot of light poles being painted, just some small things that really make the town look a lot better. So a shout out to those employees that are working hard on that. My last slide is, last but not least, is the cemetery. And we had a lot of compliments this year on how the cemetery looked, and our crews really worked hard. We borrowed some guys from the street department to come out and help with the cemetery. But a lot of graves, you go and start trying to weed eat around 10,000 graves, that's quite a task. But Mother Nature helped us this year. We had kind of a dry area right but before Memorial Day, so things went really good. But one little part of that cemetery program out there is a GPS burial site. If you download the Marion City app, or if you look on our Marion City website, or the cemetery has its own website, you can access this area GPS. So if you're looking for a loved one that you're not quite sure where the gravesite is, hopefully you can access and find that right through that GPS site. If not, talk to JD out the cemetery, and he can help guide you there. So with that, that's all the slides I have. I just shout out to the street department and the cemetery department, and I'm just so honored to be involved with those crews, and I feel lucky to be able to be associated with them, and just proud of all the work they do. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Public Works Commissioner John Stecklin, and like Jim, I'm extremely proud of the work that's gone on. I couldn't imagine serving on a board with better people than are sitting right here tonight. So it's been a pleasure doing that. And like Mike, unbelievable with our city workers. I see it in my departments, but I also see it in the other departments as well. So everybody in the town should be very grateful of the dedication that they all do. So I'm going to talk with some exciting stuff about basically the water and sewer department, which I oversee. We're now calling this the Public Works Department. So as you'll see later in the mayor's presentation, as we move into the new city hall stuff, you're going to see less of water and sewer, and you're going to see public works. And I realize some cities have more things or less things in public works than that, but we're mainly focusing on water and sewer. Lived here for 25 years or so, didn't really know other than when I turn on my faucet, I expect water to come out, and when I use the restroom, I expect it to go away. So that's about what I knew about water and sewer. There's a lot more to it than just that. and I'll get into a lot of that tonight. So let's talk about some of the projects we've got going on. Here you can see 3 gentlemen that are just ready to start building some stuff. This is on the east side of town. We have a plot of land over there, and we are proud that we've got a grant that goes through, and we're going to be putting up another water tower on the east side of town to help supply some much needed pressure and things like that to the new growth on the east side of the city as well as some of the south. So it's going to go, as you see the little star there, right out on the east side of Dion. The other thing that we did also, if you noticed, the Boulevard tank, which is the water tank directly behind the water supply office, that got redone this year, inside and outside. So you don't just paint the outside of a tank. You have to take it down on the inside, and about every 20 years have to redo that. And it's not cheap, but it was time, and it looks great, and we're happy that that is done. So we will now have 4 storage tanks. The 3 big ones are 700 and some thousand, I think, a piece, and I think that one's close to 500,000. So if anything were to happen again like we had happened at Rend Lake a few years back, we've got at least a supply that will sustain us for a few days on that, so not a problem. Let's move on. So some of the sewer line improvements and sanitary sewer improvements, one thing I learned about sanitary sewer is that the EPA is very involved in this, and they've kind of put out their little things that say, hey, we think you should do this, or we think you should do that. It's not really a we think you should, it's you're going to, and it's not a matter of if, it's when. So Brent and Cliff and everybody have been talking about this and trying to prepare for what we know is going to come down the pike from the EPA, and that is we have to satisfy certain requirements that they're going to put on us. And so we've started that. It's all going very well, and the best thing is we're funding that. So that's the other good thing. So we have a huge sanitary sewer rehabilitation project going on in town. It's almost a $5 million project. It is retrofitting the oldest lines in Marion. It's going to give us about an extra 50 years of additional life, and that's important. There are parts of the city that we have 100-year-old pipes in. We have some water mains that are 2-inch, 1-inch in diameter, and if you think about that, that's what goes to your dishwasher. Imagine that, sending that to a street. So those are all things that we're upgrading. That you don't see them. They're out of sight, out of mind, but it's all things that we take for granted and we expect to work. So we want to make sure that they're working in the best condition they can. We're also excited about $500,000, a little more than that, on the South Market Sanitary Sewer Extension Project. You'll see that in green. It's going to allow Marion to expand sewer service all the way down to South Market Road to Sycamore and eventually down to Cochran. So as we move along that line, we see a lot of residential development in that area. So that's where we're going to be continuing on our sanitary sewers and eventually our water and sewer down the south part of town. So let's move on there. So now I know the mayor has got some nice videos and some stuff about some neat projects coming up, but let me tell you, this might take the cake here. I'm taking you inside a sewer, okay? I just want to show you on the left, and this has been edited for TV, so there's nothing bad about this. The one on the left is an unlined one, and the one on the right is one where you can see where we have retrofitted. They basically go in, if you think of a stent and something like that, you go in, you blow it up, and it sticks to the outside. That's what it looks like when it's done. So when we talk about adding 50 years of life to existing pipes, it's 10 times more expensive, maybe more than that. Brent can correct me on that, to replace all this stuff. But now we can go in with technology and put this stuff through and basically put it on the inside, and it gives us a brand new life to all these lines. So that's kind of exciting. I mean, when you're in the water and sewer department business, this is like the best you can imagine. So anyway, thank you for the videos on that, guys. This is exciting too. I asked this question one of my first weeks in office. I said, hey, we must have a lot of pipes and stuff running around this city. Do we know where they're at? Most of them. There's some books over here, books over there. So anyway, what's been going on is they have been mapping this thing all over the city, and I'm proud to say we're just about done mapping every line, and that's a lot of assets that we own as a city that are under the ground. So we have about 120 miles of sewer lines, 10 miles of pressure mains. We have 3,000 manholes in the city. And you think about that, that's a lot of manholes. We know where they're at, how deep they are, the size, when the maintenance has been done on it. So we're getting all this data that we can now use, which basically saves us precious time that we can allocate for our human resources to go out and do things they need to be doing rather than this kind of mundane stuff that we can let computers and stuff tell us what's the problem. We operate 19 lift stations, 150 residential pump stations, and it gives us a permanent record of all those assets. And when we talk about data and technology, one of the things that's not on here, but I want to talk about, is the fact that all of our meters now in town are digital. And that's a big thing, because now what can happen is when you have a water leak at your home, we will know about it and can be notified instantly of it. So we can let you know, hey, guess what? You got a busted pipe. You got this. And I think that's a huge advancement for us. Not only that, we don't have to send somebody out to read your meter every month. We can do that digitally and record that right back there at the office. So those are two big technological things that we got going on. All right, the other thing that I think is, I'm so proud of this one. We like to keep abreast of what our other cities around Southern Illinois and stuff are charging for water and sewer. And so as you can look down there at Marion, we are one of the lowest of all the cities around us. And what's great that we're low, but what's even better than this is that our infrastructure is in really good shape. So we do not have a new, wastewater plant needing to be brought on in the next 2 years at a $25 million cost, which you know what's going to happen to some of these cities when they have to do that. Their rates are going to go up. I mean, they're already higher than we are. So I think we're very blessed at the rate structure that we've got in town, because it is, again, one of the lowest in Southern Illinois. And that's evident of what we priced out right here. So thank you for that. So let's talk about our public health, financial health, public works, financial health. Sorry about that. We're a fully self-supported department. So we do not have any general funds that go into the public works department. It is all self-sustaining. Both the water and the sewer departments are operating at surplus budgets. They allow us to fund the depreciation. We plan ahead. One thing I charged Brent with early on is to look further out. We were looking 5 or so years. Let's look 20 and make sure that we don't have this big ticket item coming up. We know it's going to need replaced. I mean, technology ages out. So we know this item we put in 2021 is going to age out in 2031. Well, if it's a $10 million piece of equipment, we better be saving $1 million a year. So let's plan out way ahead and get that in the budget. And it's in there, and we're ready for that. So that's really good that we've got that to do. We've got emergency funds in place. If we ever have a major downturn, then we need emergency funds for whatever, because they're going to happen. We've got that in place. And our O&M budget is set really well for about the next 20 years. So we are in really good shape in that department, and that works really well. I think that might be the last one. It is. Man, that's a good-looking guy right there. So I'm going to turn it over. Again, I just want to say thank you very much to both Brent and Cliff and everybody at the Water and Sewer Department. It's been a pleasure the past 2 years. Looking forward to the next 2 years. And I will bring up Mr. Barwick.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for having interest in the City of Marion and attending this State of the City address. As the others have said, I really feel humbled sharing this stage with a truly outstanding group of individuals that we have on our City Council. Quickly, for those of you that don't know me, my name is John Barwick. I'm a lifelong resident of Marion, graduating from Marion High School in the class of 1975. I retired from the Illinois State Police a few years back as a master sergeant with 26 plus years of experience in patrol, investigations, and administration. And I felt very fortunate once I was elected and I was seated as a Public Health and Safety Commissioner for the City of Marion. I oversee 3 departments: Animal Control, the Marion Fire Department, and the Marion Police Department. And tonight I want to give you a glimpse of these departments and what they've done in the past couple of years. At Animal Control, our supervisor is Shanna Askew. We have 1 full-time and 1 part-time officer assisting her. And over the past 2 years, they have been pretty busy. If you look at the stats on the screen, dogs and cats are our main products that we have. Surrenders, we had 39 dogs, 21 cats, 299 strays of dogs, 451 cats. Impound 57, those would be from bites or owner arrested of dogs, 35 cats. confiscated under Humane Care for Animal Act, 21 dogs, 8 cats, for a total of 416 dogs, 515 cats. Some of those, as you can see, have been reclaimed by their owners. Some are adopted, and the ones that either aren't reclaimed or adopted, they're transported to other licensed facilities, to non-kill facilities, to give them a better life. And I just want to remind everyone, if you are interested in dogs or a cat for a pet, you might want to check with animal control and adopt an animal, and instead of buying one at a pet store. Go down and see what they have to offer, and perhaps they'll have just exactly what you want. Their job isn't just about cats and dogs. They've had to capture rabbits, turkeys, tortoises, and even a horse. Animal control does an outstanding job, and I'd like to thank each of them for the service that they do to the city. The second department that I oversee is the fire department. The city is very fortunate to have experienced leadership at the fire department. Fire Chief Tim Barnett with 23 years firefighting experience, and Assistant Chief Bill Heide with 28 years of experience. We have 3 captains, 4 lieutenants, and 16 firefighters. We also have an administrative assistant, Kathy Anderson, that keeps all those guys in line. In the last 2 years, we've had 2 retirements, Chief Jerry Odom and Assistant Chief Tim Stotler, and we've hired 3 new firefighters. When I came into office 2 years ago, we were in the middle of a construction project on the addition to the fire station on North Court Street. It has since been completed and is an asset, giving us much needed room for our growing department. Take a look at some stats that we've put together to give you an idea of what the fire department actually does. Over the last 2 years, they've responded to 1,742 calls. In those calls, several fire calls, 325, rescue and EMS, 188, 264 hazardous condition calls, 292 service calls, activated alarms, 404. Mutual aid calls, 120, and that's something that's very important. We have a good working relationship with the communities around us, offering us mutual aid as well as we offer them mutual aids. A large fire, we've got help if we need it, and they do too. Just a little trivia here, gallons of unmetered water usage, 220,303 gallons. Estimated fire loss was 1,598,000. Estimated assessed property that they saved, 9,524,000, or approximately 85% of the properties that were saved. Over the last couple of years, we've received several community grants totaling close to $50,000. The chief at the fire department, his leadership, we've been able to sell unused equipment, things that we no longer need, approximately $78,000, and that was put back into the budget. We received a new community digital sign by the generous donation by Reynolds Roofing here in Marion. I don't know if that picture showed it, but that was after the new building was completed. That's on the south corner of the building. And a few weeks ago, the city authorized the purchase of a new aerial fire truck, thanks to a grant that funded by the Harrison Bruce Foundation. And we've got a picture of the truck. A little bit about the truck. It takes approximately 18 months to have it built. It's an E1 all aluminum custom HR 100-foot aerial truck. For you truck guys, it hosts a Cummins L9 450 horsepower diesel engine with a 300-gallon water tank and a 1,500-gallon per minute Hale DSD pump. That's 25 gallons per second. Okay, you're probably thinking the same thing I was thinking. A 300-gallon tank hooked to a 1,500-gallon per minute pump. In about 12 seconds, it's going to be empty. That is true, but that's not what the tank's for. I was told once they arrive at a fire, They put a smaller hose on that 300-gallon tank to get things going while they're hooking the truck up to a hydrant, because every second counts. I do want to thank the Harrison Bruce Foundation for their generosity they have bestowed on the city for this new truck, and we have been inspired, and we are going to pay it forward. We had 2 older trucks that we were originally going to sell, but due to the generosity of the Harrison Bruce Foundation, we are going to donate those trucks, one to the Williamson County Fire Protection District and one to the Carterville Fire Department. I want to thank each of our firefighters and the support staff. They do keep our residents safe, and they are truly professionals. Last but not least, I want to give you a glimpse at the Marion Police Department. In today's climate, a lot of negative things are being said about the police. Throughout our nation, there's a movement to demonize the police and to defund them. Rest assured, we are not going to defund the Marion Police Department. They are truly professionals. I want to say, as a career law enforcement officer who's worked in every city and town in the 7 counties that are in Illinois District 13, that the Marion Police Department and its officers are second to none. We have an outstanding, dedicated officers who truly care about the safety of our citizens. We are fortunate to have experienced leadership leading the department. Chief Dave Fitz with 34 years of experience, and Assistant Chief Tina Morrow with 24 years of experience. I do work closely with them to ensure that we hire the best officers, provide training and proper equipment for the officers to do their job correctly and safely. Few highlighted notes here of what the department has accomplished in the last couple of years. Since April of 2019, we've hired 10 new officers, bringing the total sworn count to 40. The department also has 13 full-time dispatchers and 3 full-time civilian support staff. We've had 2 officers retire, Sergeant Baldwin and Sergeant Griffith. 2 officers have been promoted from the rank of officer to the rank of sergeant, Jesse Thompson and Kevin Ogden. 1 officer has been added to the Marion Narcotics Unit, bringing the Marion Narcotics Unit to a total of 3 officers. Also included in that is an additional canine named Meta. In this time frame, the Marion Police Department has purchased 6 new vehicles, and as a savings for the police department, we had negotiated with the Missouri Highway Patrol, and 3 of those vehicles were purchased as pre-owned vehicles by the Missouri Highway Patrol, saving the city approximately $45,000. Also, the Marion Police Department's changed its logo. The patch navy blue background with yellow M and the tower from the tower square. Also added the American flag to the right shoulder of the uniforms. Thanks to the Williamson County ETSB, Jeff Diedrich, Steve Fowler, and Micah Merrill for their generous donation to enable the police department to purchase a new lighted LED sign out in front of the police department there on DeYoung Street. Police department also added 1 new canine officer and a new canine. The canine's name is Karma. I think that's a fitting name for a police dog. Through a generous grant from the Harrison Bruce Foundation and a lot of hard work by Detective Chris Ramage, the PD was able to acquire a new fully armored vehicle for the emergency response team, keeping them safe in their endeavors. The department has also reinstated Officer and Dispatcher of the Year awards. The Marion Police Department Detective Carl Eggemeyer was very instrumental in newly formed county-wide crisis negotiation team. All Williamson County law enforcement entities are participating in this program. And then the mayor touched on this. Beginning in the 2019-20 school year, the Marion Police Department partnered with Marion Unit 2 schools, and we were able to place an armed school security officer in every Unit 2 school. The high school already had an officer, a school resource officer, and now all the other departments have one also. A little bit of activity reports here. City ordinance violations for the last 2 years, 759. Warrant arrests, 503. There were 9,766 incidents reported, 3,401 traffic crashes, 135 DUIs, 123,043 dispatched calls. Marion 911 calls totaled 78,001, and just as a side note, Marion is the hub for the Williamson County 911 system. We receive approximately 75% of all the 911 calls coming into the Marion Call Center. Ambulance calls, 8,260. Also, I want to comment on that. When we came into office 2 years ago, the city had a contract, and we were paying $300,000 a year to provide ambulance service to our residents. We felt that was a little bit high, put it out for bids, and with some negotiations, we brought that down to zero. That's right, from $300,000 to zero, and still have a tremendous company that is providing ambulance service for our residents. Next slide, the detective units, 696 cases for the past 2 years, and we've highlighted the top 10: burglary, theft of vehicles, sex offenses, death investigations, unlawful use of weapons, property damage, fraud, forgery, counterfeit currency, and there was an 11th that was tied with the counterfeit currency at 20, and that was robbery and armed robbery, for a total of 20. But the detectives have kept really busy, tremendous 696 cases. The next unit I want to talk about is our narcotics unit, and I am really impressed with these numbers. 442 cases initiated, 252 arrests, 4 pounds of cocaine have been taken off the streets of Marion, 128 pounds of methamphetamines, 2 pounds of heroin, 135 pounds of cannabis, 2 grow operations, 86 cannabis plants, 50 grams of fentanyl. They've seized $113,769 in the drug dealers' money. Also 74 firearms and 6 vehicles. I think those numbers are just tremendous. I worked with the drug task force when I was with the state police, and I kind of have an insight of what goes on, and these guys have kept busy to produce these kind of numbers. One last item, when this council came together in 2019, we each created goals and objectives for our particular departments as well as the city as a whole. One of my main objectives was to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money without jeopardizing the safety of our residents and create a safe environment for each of us to live in and raise our family. I've touched on a couple of areas where we've been successful in saving money while not jeopardizing safety. And when looking at the stat numbers for each of the 3 departments I oversee, it's evident that our employees are working hard to keep us all safe. I want to thank not just the employees of the public health and safety umbrella, but each and every city employee for everything that they do. I'm reminded of a quote by Michael Jordan, and it goes, "Some people want it to happen, others make it happen. I feel that our city employees are the ones that make it happen." Thank you.
Sometimes being the last is not good. After all those facts and figures from those 3 guys, I ain't got nothing. Good evening. My name is Doug Patton. I am the commissioner that oversees the finances of the city. To me, it's either black or white. Hey, Doug, we got money? Yep. Hey, Doug, we got money? Nope. We either got it or we don't, okay? We need to be fiscally responsible with it. I've had the privilege of serving on this council for the last 7 years. My wife Lisa is a retired Marion Unit 2 school social worker and an educator, and she now owns Expression here in Marion. When given this opportunity to speak about the city's financial standing, there actually is a lot to talk about. But I've mainly wanted to focus on how the city has fared over the last couple of years. Since our city council elections are held in April, the customary budget procedure is that the new council inherits the budget set by the previous council. So two years ago, the previous council budgeted an $80,000 surplus. Many financial factors, including fiscal responsibility, better than anticipated revenues, and some aggressive cost-saving initiatives, allowed us to manage more than $900,000 surplus in our first budget. That is fantastic. Applying those same cost savings to our second budget, we anticipated a surplus of $76,000. Going into last fiscal year, which runs from May 1 to April 30th, our goal was to have the budget completed by the beginning of March 2020. So it consumed most of the first quarter of 2020. During that time, the threat of COVID was not really known, and its impact was unpredictable. Near the end of March, the global pandemic became a reality. We had no real metric to understand what impacts COVID would have on our budget. But we certainly understood that there would be impacts from the pandemic, but since there was no way to make solid predictions, we decided that we would proceed with our budget as usual. Through COVID, remarkably, our revenues, for the most part, remained strong. What a testament to our strong business community. Our businesses endured so much during this time, and fortunately, most are doing well today. While our goal was to operate with a $76,000 surplus last fiscal year, community support to our local businesses, fiscal responsibility by our city departments, and city council allowed us to manage a $90,000 surplus last fiscal year. As COVID progressed, information about metrics became available. Some of those predictions indicated as much as a $5 million revenue shortfall, making our current standing even more remarkable. Calendar year 2020 was our first year with the increased sales tax and no property tax. It was a huge leap of faith and an incredible challenge, but through collaborative efforts, we weathered the storm. We came out in a better financial position than we even budgeted for. All I can say is that we are blessed. Looking post-pandemic, we budgeted for a $242,000 surplus in this fiscal year. We will continue to look for ways to cut unnecessary spending, and will continue to rely on sales tax to fund our city government. All of our budget surplus is put into a budget stabilization fund. Sometimes we like to call it our rainy day fund. But I want to let you know that we are saving responsibly, and between our efforts and those efforts of our predecessors, I'm happy to report that our rainy day fund is currently over $5 million. Again, we are blessed to be able to have this cushion for unexpected and unpredictable things that may stand in our way. Lastly, we are investing in our town. We are working to improve neighborhoods and improve property values citywide by cracking down on problem properties and fixing drainage issues dating back for decades. The mayor will touch on some of these exciting things around the corner, but the work we are doing in our neighborhoods and our downtown is building a future for our kids and our grandkids to enjoy. Collaboratively, through the city, our dedicated employees come to work every day. Our city commissioners serve every day. And our mayor's diligent, unwavering work is all for one common goal, and that is to make Marion a better place. So let's keep up the hard work, stay focused, and turn that vision into reality. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go on with part 3, and I'm going to run through this rapidly because there's a lot left, and I want to be sensitive of your time. But once again, each slide you see, and as I think of it, I'm going to try to call out specific people that work for the city that had material impacts on what you're seeing. But again, each one of these slides is an enormous amount of work, vision, manpower, and execution in order to get it to where we're hopefully just about to be. So on the first slide, actually a set of 3 slides, I want to show you an effort that Allison Hasler, who's sitting right here, if you'll wave. Allison is someone that the city has hired, and her title is Director of Community Programs. She also writes many of the grants that the city had never had a grant writer before. And so this, I think Commissioner Steckland mentioned the two are the 500,000 gallon, 500,000 gallon water tower that we're getting ready to construct. It's about a $2.5–3 million project. Allison wrote the grant for that. So that's also part of her job. But the other part, a major part of her job when it relates to community programs, which you're going to see a lot in the next slides, but it has to do with whether it's I come up with an idea, one of the commissioner comes up with an idea, or more importantly, she comes up with an idea, is coming up with the plan of how to actually get there. Allison has a passion specifically, as do many other people, for bicycle riding. And unfortunately, Southern Illinois has kind of a dearth of navigable bicycle paths. And so she's working on, as well as many others, this Crab Orchard Greenway project. Now that is a multi-year, I want to emphasize that, multi-community approach. The school district is also involved in this. They just got a $2 million grant for a part of that trail, as did Rides Mass Transit. And the idea here, I don't know how you can tell this. This is, let's see. I don't know if you can see that little dot or not. Carbondale's way over here. We're way over here. Eventually, this is going to be a path from Jackson County all the way to Marion and hopefully beyond. And just show you real quickly the next slide there, Cody. These are at our point where it terminates in Marion. This is more at the this left corner picture here. It represents the Marion High School Harry Crisp Senior Sports Complex, and it will be terminating right in there. And this is, I don't think you can read these. It's hard for me to read. Looking west on Westminster Road, which we're also going to be improving. And then looking north on 148 towards Main Street, you can see this big bike trail. So for the first time in many years, the Crab Orchard Wildlife Refuge has worked with the city very, very well to make sure this project transverses the wildlife refuge, which will be unique in of itself. And then lastly, on the biking plan, on the next slide, Allison is also working, and we have commissioned what I hope in the years to come will be very fruitful for the city, and so that we just don't knee-jerk this, and this thing can be planned strategically, especially as we reinvigorate our downtown areas. We have commissioned a master bike plan to end up with the goals being, I will read this slide, more active, connected, healthy, and progressive community for bicycle transportation and recreation, and to serve the mobility needs by positive interactions between travel, modes in a safe and low-stress manner while maintaining a level of fiscal responsibility. So we have big plans and big goals for this bicycle plan, and the hope is, in my mind, that someday you'll be able to ride from Tunnel Hill to Murfreesboro. And so any of you are willing to make that ride? That's quite a haul. Allison's willing to make the ride. She will be first. One of the other things that Allison has worked hand in hand with me and many others on is the creation of the Marion Mural District. And you have started to see that all around you. And I'm so happy and so proud of that. And it's literally one of the most visible things that we've been able to do. This map that you see in front of you, I think, is live. Is it not, Cody? So can you zoom in on that? So to date, we've got 12 of these murals. We're showing you in this format because this will be something that will be available to our visitors on a city app as well as on our website. It's actually a Google map, and so anybody that has Google on their phone can get to this. And if you click on one of those buttons for our visitors, it will show you the mural, and in time we will have some descriptions about who created it, why it was created, and what it's representing. Now, before I forget, I've got to tell you guys that there is a bigger plan and reasoning for these murals. And it's sort of interspersed through the rest of this, but it is absolutely integral to the revitalization of downtown. It's integral because we have to have reasons for people not just to want to visit downtown, but to stay there, to walk around. And that's what this is intended to be, is a walkable mural path. And for anybody that's volunteered in painting some of these, and if you haven't volunteered, get Josh Benson, who's also been very integral into painting these, many of them, to tell you the stories that people tell him when they stop to talk to him while he's involved in one of these murals. They do elicit stories. It's just painting them has been evidence of what we've seen of why we want to do them in the first place, because literally people stop and they look at them and they talk about them and they reminisce and they talk about the good old days and old downtown Marion. But as we create these areas, these walkable areas, these commerce areas, these are a big part of it. They're integrated into that whole effort. It's not just for pretty stuff to be painted on ugly walls. It's for people to become engaged in our downtown and enjoy the art. And I have to say that a lot of what has popped up, and I use that term specifically, several of these murals have literally just popped up. They were not part of our downtown mural plan at first. What happened is another very unintended and inspired, in my opinion, effect of the pandemic. When this facility was closed, Josh Benson and I had conversations about, and Josh was laid off like many city workers at the very beginning. And when we, as Doug indicated, we had no idea what was coming at us. We literally thought we were in for a 25 to 30% drop in revenue, a $5 million budget hole. There goes the rainy day fund. It's just going to be a rainy day. And so, but when that sort of leveled off, we're like, okay, it doesn't quite look that bad. And we brought the 43 people that tragically were laid off all in 1 week. Josh was one of those. But the Civic Center was still shuttered. And the conversation centered around, Josh, we're still dealing with tax dollars here, and we can't operate your facility. So what do we do? How do we serve the public? Josh's answer to that was I can paint. And so a lot of his involvement in this was not planned. It was absolutely a part of the outcome, if you will, the unintended but very appreciated outcome of the pandemic. So these are a few pictures of the murals that are yet to come that you have not seen yet. I think there's 9 more that have been commissioned, and we have artists everywhere from teenagers that designed and are painting these right here in Marion, namely the one that's going on the back of Tower Square Pizza is a very impressive young girl. And that's right here local. And I think one of them is as far away as an artist from Mexico City. Is that correct? California. Okay. Well, California, Mexico. We did have somebody from Mexico. Did they not win that one? Okay. My bad. So let me move on to the next slide, which is this is the exciting part for me, the downtown revitalization. I want to be very explicit with this. Not every design element of this is etched in stone. We have not got to the point where we're going to bid the project out. It's just been sort of in this stage for the last year. We literally presented some of these plans to the public, the first iterations of them, I believe a year ago last July. So we're knocking on the door of just a year already, even in the design stage. But very shortly, this will be finalized, and we will pick some of these colors and some of the finer nuances, and we will move on to construction with the goal of having this first part done by the fall. So before you hit play there, Cody, I want you guys to keep in mind the center part of Tower Square Plaza, where the courthouse used to be. And I'm not saying we haven't spent money as a city, because we have in landscaping and in some maintenance and things like that. But we have not materially invested money on that part as a city for 50 years. The last time they did that, I believe, if I read right, was about 1974. They spent about $400,000. And that was shortly, of course, after the courthouse was torn down and it needed to be done to be made usable. But basically, we've been operating that way since then. And so the idea here is to make this a more walkable, usable space and far more aesthetically pleasing and an attraction, again, to bring people downtown and for them to stay here. So this first slide is an animation of this. It has sound, but I'm not going to play it because it's really annoying. Cody, I may ask you to pause this because I'm going to try to orient some people here. See if this, I don't know if this, Just to orient you, this is Mayor Bob's statue over here on the west face. That's facing West Main Street. So this would be North Market up here, obviously South Market down here, and then as you move east. So on the west and the east, which are the most traffic, more traffic comes east and west than does north to south, we will be building these fountain basins. One of the design elements that we will have, you can't see it very well in this picture right here, but these are actually seated fountains, so people will be able to sit there and take pictures. One of the kind of disjointed things that because it's in four or five different places on the square, is all the war memorials. How many of you even know that every war dead from the Civil War to present is even listed in on bronze plaques on the Tower Square? How many did not know that? Yeah, most of you. So one of the things that we're going to do is remove those. Those plaques are all the same size, and we're going to attach them to the seat back of these fountains and make it our own war memorial. But they will be a picture opportunity, there'll be a seating opportunity, and I'll get to more about what they'll do. Go ahead and hit play. The idea here is they are lit by LED lights. This little building that will be constructed right here on the north side of this will house all the filtration equipment needed to keep the water clean for these fountains. You'll see pergolas that will be installed in between the walkways that we currently have. We are going to try very hard not to disturb any of the grassy areas or the existing monuments that we have. So the main things that we're going to be moving is, frankly, the really ugly geometric flower boxes that are 50 years old that are really, really badly in need of repair or replacement. So we're going to take those out, and you'd be shocked at how much room there is out there. This is more of a ground level view of what you would see as you were walking around the plaza. And no, we're not deconstructing and building all these new buildings. That's just what the people that did this animation threw in there. I think this is a nighttime view walkthrough the same way. Now, to give you more of an idea of what I mean by having a reason to gather here, how many of you know what a gender reveal is? Anybody's been part of one where you go and you cut a cake and it's either pink or it's blue inside the cake, and that reveals what the gender of the baby is? So just as one example, people will be able to reserve the square, if you will, the center plaza, and they'll have a baby reveal, and they will pick some music, And at an appointed time, all their friends gather around, and either the fountains will turn blue or they'll turn pink. So there's just one very unique example of what we could do to bring 50 or 100 people potentially up to the square and have a reason for them to stay, maybe go get a meal at one of our new restaurants or existing restaurants that's going up, and or go get an ice cream or see a show right here at the Civic Center. So let's go ahead to the next slide. This one has music, or has sound. So the interesting thing about these fountains is that not only do they have LED lights, but they're also timed to music. And it comes with software that Josh Benson, I'll just let it play. So our fountains are going to be in half moons, not in this circular configuration that you see, but these are the fountains. We just ordered them last week, as a matter of fact. These are the exact fountain heads to show you their capabilities. So if you can picture people getting out there for a baby reveal, for a wedding anniversary, for wedding vows, what have you, whatever they needed to celebrate, pardon the pun there for those of you that know the song, that's what this is all about. And there are many more versions of that. That's in Station Park, Utah, by the way. If you want to get on YouTube and see different songs, they're all on there. But Josh has so graciously volunteered, just like Steve did, to do the Pledge of Allegiance, to learn how to use this software and program this. So we're excited about that. On the next slide shows you a little bit of an overhead, almost a diagram, if you will. And I want to point out this. So notice, after we move all those flower boxes, which really take up quite a bit more room than what meets the eye, it's going to leave a lot of walking space, and you'll notice this rectangle. And you can turn the volume down on that one, Cody, but let's go to the next slide. This is what we're going to have during the wintertime. So this is an ice skating rink. It probably will operate somewhere between 3 and 4 months out of the year, specifically 52 degrees air temperature or warmer. Actually has cooling coils through the ground, and you literally fill up a basin with water and you freeze it and smooth it and skate on it. So that's what we have in store, and there again, a whole nother reason for people to come to the square. We feel like this will be very, very unique in all of Southern Illinois and will be a great time had by all. What is interesting about all of this public infrastructure investment is it goes hand in hand, and it really is a chicken and egg argument as to which comes first, the people that commit to renovating the privately owned buildings on the square, or do we do all of this stuff first and then people catch fire? I am so pleased, and honestly, Marion is so blessed to have people in this community that are rehabbing these old buildings. For those of you that know me and my background and my love for cars, I've always equated it very much to restoring an old car. You're going to have more in that car than it's worth, and it's probably going to be worth more to you than it is to anybody else because it's a labor of love. And so, when you're talking about 100-plus-year-old buildings, you've got to find people that have absolute passion and that can see beyond all that's been there for so long and see the potential that can be there for the next 50 years. And we are so blessed as a town to have many of those individuals, and I want to call out a few of them and the projects that they're planning. And the first one, because I picked on him, and that I want to call out is Sherry and Steve Fowler, who bought the old F.W. Woolworths building, which is on the southwest quadrant of the square, that great big building. I don't have a picture of it. That is where many of you have heard. Steve was fortunate enough to have applied for, and we give a lot of kudos to Senator Fowler and Dave Severin and a lot of our higher up elected folks that worked hard, and Steve got a not Rebuild Illinois, I forgot the name, Rebuild Illinois grant, development grant, a little bit in excess of $1 million to rehab that building. And I think Steve is planning on, I know Steve is planning on Seasonings Bistro locating there, hopefully sooner than later, as soon as you can get started. And then still planning on upstairs luxury condos. Is that still the case? A couple of them, or maybe 4 of them. I don't know if he's decided yet. So that's one example. On the and Steve had already, and Sherry and his daughter invested in the building that's now known as Lavish, just adjacent to that to the south. I get turned around in here, but I think it's right over here. He'd already invested in that corner, and so this is just more evidence of his passion and his love for Marion. And so Steve and Sherry, and we appreciate you. We appreciate what you're doing. Some other buildings on the square that are being renovated by all this private money, so to speak, is, let's see, Jeff Mayer, who is the owner and proprietor at Marion Toyota, who I went to high school with. He was a couple years ahead of me, and until I was elected mayor, I had no idea just how passionate he was about our hometown and our downtown specifically. And so he bought the Goodall building, which is a 110-year-old, I think, building on which most of you recognize either as where, if you're younger, it's where Shivelbines used to be. If you grew up in Marion like I did, some restaurant was there. In my case, it was the Uptowner that was in the basement of that building. So Jeff has renovated that building to a great extent and gutted it, and there's a whole lot more work to go. I don't know that he has tenants that I can name to you tonight on either the 5,000 square feet that's in the basement or on the main level, but I know he too is building 4 luxury apartments on the top floor, which will be quite the view. And we're excited and proud of that venture that Jeff is doing. And again, I don't think Jeff's here tonight, but I would hug all these people if I could. Another one on the, let's see, northeast quadrant of the square, just above where Martini Joe's is at, is a building, I think it's called the Jones Building, or part of it's called the Jones Building, that Aaron Smith has purchased. And Aaron is a singer-songwriter sort of by hobby, and has connections to Nashville. And he came to me and asked about, what would I think about a small venue there, not to compete necessarily with the Civic Center, but somewhere he thought he could get some A and B list Nashville talent to come up here, acoustically speaking, with a guitar and just them, no big production and band, someplace somebody could sit down and have a drink and enjoy some acoustic country music. And I thought that was a really good idea. And the city council backs that endeavor, and so he is putting something there called Little Nashville, which if any of you know the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, Tennessee, it's sort of patterned off that concept. And so we're excited for Aaron, we're excited for that building. And there's just 3 examples. But one that is going to be critical to the downtown area is our new city hall. And so we were blessed to be approached by, and honestly, I can't remember if they approached us or I approached them first. Maybe we approached each other. But the First Southern Bank building at 300 Tower Square has been underutilized by the bank for quite some time. Matter of fact, I think it's been decades and decades since anybody's really been on the second floor. And the basement was all but unused, only leaving the lobby area for just a handful of employees. Their biggest business in the banking area is to the north of that building than the drive-through. And so they approached us and wanted to be a part. They needed a different use for their building, although they wanted to stay, and we had lots of discussions on what that might look like, how they remained a banking entity on the square, but how they could maybe not use that building. So in effect, except for about $100,000, they gave us this grand old building. Again, another 100-year-old building that's going to require lots of work and lots of TLC, but we think it's going to make a tremendous city hall for the next 100 years in Marion. And so we want to play you Gail White, I know from White and Berganoni Associates, who's the architect, is here with us tonight, and this is his walkthrough of what that might look like animated-wise. And I'll just let you see that once, and then I want to make a couple of comments. City clerks on the right, water department, sewer department, public works department. As you head straight in, this is basically where the Bank of Marion's counter is right now, and this is building and code services, and then back out the other front door. One of the exciting parts to the commissioners, and what I hope ultimately will be the city employees, we've got a challenge in City Hall now in that building and code services and is on a completely different floor that's not accessible if you walk from the square side into like where the council chambers and such is at. We literally have to, embarrassingly so, have to instruct our constituents to walk back out the front door and either get in their car and drive around to the back of the building and go in the double door, or they can walk down. You literally cannot get there from here, is what we have to tell them, because we don't have an elevator in there and that kind of thing. And so one of the exciting elements about this ground floor is anything that a constituent needs on City Hall is all available in one level, one U, right there on that ground floor. And then on the second floor, the next slide, this is on the second level of the bank, which has, like I said, been unoccupied for decades. We will be building, there's just a handful of offices up there, a conference room, and some bathrooms. But we're going to have a city, buffering. Give him a chance to find that again. One of the, although I really like our city council chambers, is very, very limited to seating. And so we will be effectively more than doubling our seating capacity for City Hall, for the council meetings or for big meetings that we have in there. And hopefully we'll go right around the corner. That's Gail right there, by the way. Looks just like him. It was amazing. And again, these colors are not representative necessarily, or the materials, it's just more of a layout. So we haven't picked all that stuff yet, but this is where we'll be able to have our city council chambers in the future. So we feel like that's going to be a great opportunity to make sure that that building, which has been literally and figuratively a cornerstone on our square for a very long time, does not fall into disrepair and can be here for the next 100 years, far beyond when any of us will be. One of the misconceptions, if you go ahead and go to the next slide, that I've probably taken, again, since about a year ago when we started publishing some of these pictures in the paper, especially to the downtown and the square, I've had lots of angry phone calls about removing parking on the square. I want to emphasize, again, once and for all, we are not removing one parking place on the square itself. What we will be doing, I don't know if, Cody, go back to that slide that shows the ice rink, please. That one. If you see these radiuses here, these corners will have much different pavement treatment that will literally highlight. The intent is to highlight the driving lanes. For any of you that work up on the square and know what the game Frogger is, it's very much like playing Frogger, real life. I sense it every day, as do many others. Traffic is far too fast, it's far too dangerous, and what the traffic consultants tell us is that if you think of it, when you come onto the square, it's so wide, and it basically is a free-for-all. There was an accident when I got here this morning, 2 trucks that one ran into each other. And so we've got to improve that. We've had an astonishing amount of traffic accidents. Fortunately, none of them fatal, and a lot of property damage to cars, not just on the square. But we've got to slow traffic down, because if we're going to have all these people coming up to the square, we can't have it the way that it is right now. It's just too dangerous. So we're going to be putting in different treatments of the pavement here that will, the parking's still going to be there. Everybody hear that? The parking is still going to be there, but it's going to look differently, and we will be able, when we have events like our Christmas events or autumn fests and those kinds of things, we'll be able on one corner or all of them if needed to put these ballards that you can screw into the pavement to kind of cordon those areas off. But the parking will remain. Now, Cody, if you will, go back to the slide we were on. So I say that because we've actually made a lot of effort to add parking, and we have no intention of removing it. And in fact, in the last 2 years, we've added 121 or so spaces that are free of charge to the downtown area. These are depicted in red, and this one is on Marion Street, which is adjacent to one we already have on College Street. This is where the old Marion Daily Republican building was, leading up to John Brown's on the square. And then this is also we acquired with First Southern Bank when we bought the building from them. And this is believe it or not, going to be a beautiful, neat little parking lot going next to Meredith Ash's store M, just one door down from Benny's. And so the parking is a conundrum in town, which leads me to our next slide. With that 100 that we've added, Marion owns, paves, maintains, stripes, but we just do a very terrible job of identifying almost 800 free parking spaces within 3 blocks of where you're sitting right now. Now, the story that I tell to that are two, actually. Again, when I'm playing Frogger on the square every day, I watch people drive around the circle a couple of times, and if it's a busy time in front of the Vault or Tower Square Pizza, or they just want to go to B.W. Bruce's office or whatever, if there's not one of those parking places open, I see them drive away. And I hear people go, well, there's just no parking on the square. Well, there are only about 25 parking places that are on the square properly. What's interesting about that is that we've got to change people's mindsets. Because if any of you have ever been to the Fox Theater or something like that in St. Louis, if you can get a free parking place within 3 blocks of that place on a show night, you thought you won the lottery. Okay? Why people won't walk half a block has been a problem for us. Now, the interesting thing about that, and this is the segue into this next part, here's why, in my opinion. And any of you know the book, The Art of War, which is an ancient book. They talk to you about finding your weakness and turning it into your strength. Here's what has occurred to me in that context. All of our parking is reached by the alleys. Well, we have done a terrible job with maintaining our alleys, keeping them well lit, well paved, clean, and interesting. And so we've got this program that Allison, again, has worked very hard on, that you're going to start, already some of it exists. We're going to start seeing it really come to life. This first one here on the left is actually John Brown's window there, and he's got a mural, but we're also going to be, this picture doesn't show it, we're going to be painting with what's called asphalt art. The asphalt itself, just like it sounds, murals going in, several of them, and we're going to be lighting them up. So with interesting crosswalks, different kinds of lighting to highlight the murals. The point is this: if we can make the alleys a destination in of themselves, then it's much easier for people to understand, oh, that's where the parking is just right on the other side of this alley. Because literally in every corner of the square, if you just think about it and think where our municipal parking's at, there are lots on the far side of every corner. But we've just not done a good job of training ourselves that way. And we literally, I get asked all the time, you're going to build a parking garage? No, we're not going to build a parking garage. They cost $6 to $9 million. They're ugly, and it's counterproductive to what we're wanting to do down here. We just need people to use the parking that we've got. But we've got to make it accessible for them. So a couple of other things moving beyond the downtown renovations. I want to talk real briefly about the new business models at the Civic Center and the Pavilion. One of the things when I was running for office that was a concern for me as a business person that I didn't quite understand, and then frankly wanted to get right on when we did get into office, but the pandemic did, with a shuttered Civic Center and a shuttered Pavilion, there wasn't a whole lot of use in talking a lot about it. But it might surprise many of you, like it did me, that the Civic Center's business model, as the Pavilion, was primarily just a rental business model. What that means is that if anyone wants to rent it for a dance recital or all the way to having a concert, you can just pay us a fee, and that's it. And all the profits, or loss for that matter, from whatever your event would be whoever the promoter was. That the Civic Center or the Pavilion didn't really share in any of that. What we did share in was 100% of the costs of cleaning up soda and popcorn and providing air conditioning and so on and so forth. And as you can imagine, just providing air conditioning and cleanup in a facility like this is not cheap. So we literally were losing money every time we rented the facility out. Now, we will still continue to do that, but fortunately, at my request, the City Council has authorized us to use some of our city funds so that we can start booking our own shows, that we, and I say we, I mean more Josh Benson in the case of the Civic Center and Jared Garrison in the sense of the Pavilion, can start producing our own shows. Now, with that comes some risk. We will also have some risk of loss if the show doesn't go well. we will have the potential to make some profit if the show does go well. And I don't know exactly how that will turn out, but I have absolute confidence that the people we have running these facilities can figure that out and will make the best of it. So beyond that, the First Christian Church right down North Market Street, right across from Benny's, which is pictured in this far right photo, unfortunately ceased having services last November. And that is no longer a church. And they deeded the building to the city with the understanding that the city would be responsible for finding any use for that property and maintaining that beautiful historic building. And so we worked many, many months, many people did, and we're excited to announce that we are going to rebrand that facility as Market Street Hall and turn that into a small venue. And what I mean by that is if this is a very large 1,100-seat theater, and it doesn't always present itself as the best venue for every kind of show. Picture a 25-person piano recital, dance recital, those kind of things. When you're up here on the stage and there's only 5 people out here clapping for you, that's pretty intimidating. And so this will make a much better environment for very small venues, or very small events in that venue. And one of the other things that will be hosted within that facility is something called the Market Street Hall, or a Market Street Music Conservatory. And so is April Mitter here still? Can you stand up? April is a Marion High School graduate and is a classically trained musician from many schools, including Northwestern School of Music. And I reached out to April after my conversations with the church on what they desired and how to make the most of that facility and how that could contribute to the rest of the things we've got going on in downtown. And so April graciously agreed to start her own 501c3 with its own board of directors, and part of the programming that's going to go on in First Christian Church will be April's organization, which will be the Market Street Music Conservatory. And so that will be intensive music training and arts training and whatever else we can envision there over time when we figure out things that will be starting, I hope, in the next 2 or 3, 4 months. For children and adults, for that matter, of all ages. She's committed to me for a community orchestra and a community choir, among the other things that we've discussed, and I could not be happier about that. Next, we had 2, it's almost mind-numbing to me, and when I start thinking about it, and if I start rattling off a lot of the personnel changes we've had since we've been in office, we've got lots of new leaders in the city, from police and fire chiefs and all kinds of new employees like Allison, and in addition of my chief of staff, Cody. But we also have new directors at the Civic Center and the library. The Civics are the Senior Citizen Center and the library. The Senior Citizen Center has got a energetic new director, Jill Graskowitz, and she is full of lots of ideas and hard to keep up with sometimes, to be honest with you. And she's rebranded it as Club 60. One of the things that she's found as a challenge is that people simply think of it as an old folks home, and it's anything but, by the way, if you've been down there lately. So you're going to start seeing that quite a bit more about Club 60. I'm so proud of the work that the Senior Citizens Center did during the pandemic. Again, just like the Civic Center, it was a question of what their role was. How do they exist in this environment? What do we do? But I am so pleased to tell you that during that 15 months, 14 months, when we counted this, they served over 38,000 meals to our seniors in that time frame. And I'm sure many of them would have found a way to eat regardless, but I can assure you that many of them counted on those. Not just for nourishment, but it was, as you can imagine, when you've been shut in and locked up and for months as a senior person, we all have been there. We've all known how that feels, but I think the seniors disproportionately suffered during this period of time. And even that brief period of time when they were able to get their meal, that was enough social interaction, as some of them told me, to really keep their head up and keep them excited. Marion Carnegie Library also has a new director, Loretta Broomfield, whom we're pleased to have and glad to have. And she's got all kinds of new programs for all kinds of new ages and new envisionment of what the library can do and how it can serve. One of the challenges we had at the library, which was very concerning and threatening, was we had a very aged HVAC system. And for those of you that can relate, when you've got books and electronic media, humidity and moisture are death knells to those media. And I'm very pleased to tell you that we're just about to complete about $1 million, about $900,000 replacement of all the HVAC equipment. This is something battled for 2 whole years that I've been here. I know my predecessors battled it, and I thank the council for helping us cobble together all the money that was needed in order to get that project and make that building viable, hopefully for maybe not 100 years with, I don't know how long air conditioning lasts, but hopefully more than just a few. On the next slide, one of the things that was near and dear to my heart as a candidate for mayor was a promise to bring the Boys and Girls Club organization to Marion, Illinois, in hopes that they could help be disruptors for good in our children's lives and provide mentorship, leadership, and coaching opportunities to the most vulnerable kids in our town. And I'm pleased to tell you that starting August 21st, they will be starting those programs out at the church building. I can't remember the name of that church off the top of my head that used to be where this building is. It's one property west of the Hucks on Old 13. So it's out by Marion Pepsi, or Pepsi Mid-America. Excuse me, Mr. Crisp, if you're still here. We're thrilled with that, and even more thrilled to watch $849,000 has been raised to date by people in this community and companies in this community to help support that effort. They're about $195,000 shy, so if you feel inspired, see me after the meeting. Okay, I know a couple of these many of you are interested in, and we just got a slide called Properties Reimagined. I am really quite excited, frankly. It's sad, I know, and some of you have told me to see the Motel Marion come down. For me, it's an exciting time to see that facility come down. It has been a blight, in my opinion, on our town for quite some time, and frankly has been quite a challenge from the law enforcement aspect and health, life, and safety of our community. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to purchase that property from its owner. And as you can see, we have sold that to a developer that just recently tore it down. And I want to show you a depiction here on this next slide of what he's planning. This isn't too fancy, but a lot of people have asked me, and if one of you's asked me, 15 have if an Olive Garden is going there. I don't know where that one came from, but no, it's not. But he's planning an 18,000 square foot strip center here on the front with about 85 parking places. And in the back, there's 4 quadplexes. But what's important about this is not necessarily whether you like what's going there or not. This represents between $3 and $4 million worth of new private investment. And that's exciting to me, that we can see something that was blighted just a handful of months ago be re-envisioned. And speaking of blighted, as most of you know, it was a big part of my candidacy to encourage people, whether it was my ideas or somebody else's ideas, to re-envision what that mall could be. Another blighted property at the time. And the reason it's important is not because the city necessarily needs to get into the private world and run malls and all that kind of stuff. It's because the city's got about $20 million of your money invested out in that development, not in the mall itself, but the roads, the infrastructure. We spent way too much just to let it fall apart. And that's where it was falling apart. We are so fortunate that people did catch fire, so to speak. Some well-known people in our town, namely Rodney Cabanis and Shad Zimbro, who are famous for their very successful Black Diamond Harley-Davidson venture and many other businesses that they now own. And here again, just another example of finding people that don't have to and may or may not make money at the end of the day when it comes to this. That's still yet determined, but that can see the potential in something that's not dead. They can see it. So I want to show you part of what their plans are. Rodney allowed me at my request to show you some of these pictures. This is what they are proposing. I want to be very explicit with this. This is not a done deal. It's more of a done deal than not, or I wouldn't be showing it to you. So I'm very optimistic that most or all of these developments will be happening here, but in no way do I want to say for certain that every individual element of this ultimately comes to light, but I do believe that it will. So on this slide, this big round kind of kidney bean looking thing over here, that's the mall property, including the 28 acres of parking lot. They purchased that property and the parking lot almost a year ago and closed on that. They have since purchased other land that's near and in some cases attaching to the mall. And so part of what, I'll get into what's going on in the interior of the mall next, but this slide is intended to depict 3 or 4 interesting developments. This one is called Oasis Fields. So this is, if I'm counting right, about 12 multi-sport fields that can be adapted, like I said, for multi-sports, and the whole goal is to get many people here each and every week or every weekend to Marion so that commerce can exist. You got to have people where you can have commerce. We need commerce on this property again. We got to find new and more innovative reasons to get people here, and this is part of what they envisioned. Up here is a ATV test track, and that's important because part of what's going to be in what their development that they're calling the Oasis is one of the world's largest ATVs, and think side-by-sides, four-wheelers, and all the accoutrements that go along with those, and accessories and things, one of the world's largest dealers on the part of the interior of the mall, and most of the outside here are a lot of the parking lots. So this is be a test track for that. Many of you also know that Black Diamond is very deep and successful in the RV business, and as they and I and everybody else has struggled to figure out what to do with some of these borrow pits with the old strip mines, those brilliant guys figured out that would make a picturesque park for a campground. And so there will be a campground there. On the next slide, which gets into more of what the mall may become, again, what they envision it becoming at this point, just to orient you, this is Dillard's, Anderson Furniture over here, and this is Target, if you couldn't tell by the bullseye. The question is what those stores have always been there. It's the stuff that connected them that went out of business that has failed, and what do they see going in there next? And you might also notice, it may be hard to see, this is where their big outdoor theater screen is at right now. This piece right here is what they're calling the atrium, and that will be a kind of a corner, or I don't know, maybe a mantelpiece, if you will, for the new Oasis development. And let's go and look at some of the slides of what they're planning on the inside. And these are too small for most of you to read, so I'm going to read them because they're more descriptive than I could be. There's an element inside called the Thrill Zone, which is a no-holds-barred destination for those adventure seekers looking to compete, to let loose, to feel the rush of adrenaline. This high-intensity space keeps guests continually coming back for more, with access to unique activations, from go-karts to trampoline parks and everything in between. I see some axe throwing there, some bumper cars, and some other things. In the atrium, which is what I pointed out to you as being kind of the mantelpiece, this is a collective hub that, according to them, that pulsates with light, color, and guest energy. The atrium is the heart of the Oasis, making an immediate impact on visitors. This center court is scaled to impress, with 360-degree activations, including indoor skydiving overhead. This destination wastes no time showcasing the unique features of the development. And I see also in here they've got indoor zip lining, it looks like, rock climbing, as well as the indoor skydiving. On the next slide, they show another part of it, which is what they're calling the Family Commons, which is a destination for the kid in all of us. Experience themed entertainment, dining, and retail with plenty of opportunities for hands-on engagement. This high-energy space will leave guests with an indelible sense of wonder and memories the whole family can enjoy. Next, on outside of the mall, but again on one of these adjacent properties that they have, can you go back a couple slides so I can point out where this is at? Okay, this overhead view, this is the test track back here, the RV park. This is the soccer and multi-field park back here. And right as you're touching the mall is Oasis Golf. Now the brand that or the franchise that they're seeking is called Big Shots. Some of you are familiar with Top Golf. This is a similar development as that, but this one is called Big Shots. And I've never been to one, but I understand they are quite popular. And before I get to the end of this, I just want to say, My feeling with all of this and what they're doing is if families and kids could, if they can get this done, and this will probably take several years to get all of these pieces done. What keeps occurring to me in the context of my own family is, boy, kids and families will never be able to say again, there's nothing to do in Southern Illinois. And that's the goal, guys, is how to re-envision an entertainment, dining, and thrill complex where retail died. And I am so grateful to them for taking the leap, for investing millions of dollars already to date in this development, and even using the name I proposed, which was Oasis. And the reason that I used Oasis there is because I've been using Oasis as our motto of sorts as I continue to describe Marion not as the hub of the universe, but as an oasis of opportunity, which is truly how I feel about our hometown. And so I'm so thankful to them. I'm so thankful to all the private investment that's going on all around town. And I am just thrilled with all of it and pleased to be able to present all that to you guys tonight. And lastly, I just want to say again, two more points before we move into Q&A. And when we do, if you get commissioners will just join me back on stage in case you have some questions you need to field too. But all of these, as Commissioner Patton already intimated, this stuff we're doing has been budgeted for. We are living within our means. We're very specific and cautious, in my opinion, to make sure that that can be the case. We realize this is your money. It's not our money to spend, and so we're cautious with that, maybe even more so than we would be with our own money. And besides that, I have to say one more time. We've had lots of changes with personnel in the city. The city and how it operates is not the mayor. It's not even the city council. It's each and every city employee that literally works out there every day and is all in. They're all in to make sure that we can move the ball down the field collectively and together. And I'm so proud of them and the superintendents in each department. And I think you guys should be too. And when you see them, I want you to pat them on the back, literally. I want you to go up and say thank you, because they work hard and they really do make a huge difference. It's as much up to them to do that as it is your elected officials. So I think that's it. That's what I wanted to show you as far as the downtown things going on. Like I said, there are a few more things that I really thought we were going to be able to talk about tonight, so I'll just have to leave you hanging on a couple of those, but those hopefully announcements will be pending within the next 2 weeks to 2 months. And don't let me down, Glenn Clarida. He's hard at work. So with that, I will ask the commissioners to join me back on stage. We have an opportunity. I know we've gone long, but there's a lot to talk about. Appreciate your patience. We have 2 microphones here in the aisles. If any of you would like to ask a question about these, we'd love to entertain those. I know there's some media here. Don't mean to be rude to the media, but we will stay for you afterwards. You're welcome to ask questions, but I'd really like to see if there's any from our constituents first before we do that. Does anybody have a question? Please don't be shy. The longer you wait, the longer we're sitting here. Anybody? Can you just come up to a microphone if you've got one? Come up to the microphone, please.
On the proposed change on the square, when traffic comes up to the square, how do they yield or they stop, or how's that going to work? How's that going to flow?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Some people want to reverse. That's a traffic circle. It's not a roundabout. And I had to learn what the difference is between a traffic circle and a roundabout. The actual more efficient way, so the traffic people tell us, is that it needs to be the other way, and it need to yield coming from the other way, not going around the circle. To be honest with you, that scares me to death, because honestly, I don't think that many people navigate it all that well anyway. So that's yet to be determined. Somebody's going to have to convince me pretty hard on that one. Yes.
Hi, Linda Linson, and my question is for Jim regarding Westminster Drive. What is your anticipated start to widen that road and ending the widening and development?
That's a good question. It's still in the planning phase. I'm thinking probably, hopefully get started in 2022. And then it'll probably be looking at a year to year and a half of construction. So
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, you might have a better,
A lot of that project is delimited and determined by the replacement of the original bridges over 57. So IDOT is doing that. They're responsible for that. They have delayed that, I think, once, and then they've changed the date. So we're sort of beholden to them on that. Our best information, right, Glenn, is next summer is that we'll be replacing those bridges. Is that? So that's where they stand right now, July 2022. So all of our stuff has got to be, but part of that project is we have to control traffic and not shut down traffic as much as, obviously, it will be over the bridge. But we have to coincide that with whenever they decide to do that, so.
Well, I really thank you for putting the stop signs in so that it slows the traffic, because it really zooms through
Yep.
there now. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd first like to say I really appreciate everything that you presented today. A few questions I have. Have you looked into potentially addressing entryways into the city?
Yes.
Some towns have, some nice landscaped areas or just signage that gives you the impression I am now in the city of Marion, whether it's a logo or something to that effect. Another thing too I noticed with the square, are you eliminating the 6-inch curb circle radius around the tower, or is it going to be flattened?
Are you talking about the flower bed up around the clock tower?
Well, currently there's like a circle curb around the
No,
tower, and
no.
it's not going to be flat?
No.
Okay, good. And then another one with the, is it going to be like stamped concrete or pavers that'll indicate the kind of traffic flow around the square?
That's one of the elements that hasn't quite been determined yet, but that's probably what are you talking about the radiuses where we're in the corners? Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about walkways?
Well, just the vehicles make an impression from an aerial view. It makes an impression around the square.
I'm sure
like
the cars are still going to be driving on asphalt.
Still
The pedestrian
asphalt.
walkways and in the parking ways, there's going to be a different traffic, or a different pavement
Okay,
treatment like
that-
stamped concrete
that
or
answers my
pavers
question.
altogether.
Okay. And then are the trees removed around
No.
they'll stay too?
No, matter of fact, we've actually made lots of design changes in order to keep those trees.
Okay. Well, I like everything. Thank you much.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about the Boys Club and the Girls Club, which I am very pleased that you brought that to our area. That's wonderful. Now, how are we going to get those children out there safely every day after school?
Busing.
Okay, so buses from every school?
Well, interestingly, they also got a grant that I believe they'll have a presence at the high school. So some of those students won't even have to leave that facility to go out there. And I don't want to present myself as an expert with Boys and Girls Club, and I really, is Tina here? Tina, can you explain that? Tina is the head of all of Boys and Girls Club of Southern Illinois. So I will let her stand up. You can just come to the microphone, if you will, and address that question.
Okay.
Hope I didn't misspeak by saying busing. I forgot.
No, so we will be working with the school district to have the kids that are members of the Boys and Girls Club bus to the site and parents picking them up. We don't have transportation at this time, but we are working to get some transportation because we know that some parents won't be able to, and this probably won't be happening by August, but hopefully within a year, where we can have some certain pickup locations where we can drop kids off at the end of the day. And then, yes, we will have a school-based site at the high school. Thank you.
Just got one question. The building on East Main, right across from the post office, I know that was recently purchased. Is there any tentative plans for that building, or did the city
Yeah, it's going to be
purchase it?
torn down in the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm a school bus driver. Commissioner Webb mentioned the 5th Street being extended. I'm wondering how far south that would be, and when that would begin and end as well, the extension of 5th Street.
that be a signalized interchange, so it should be turn lanes, so it should be much easier for the bus drivers to navigate blending in with that Route 13. As far as timing on construction, again, I believe that we're probably looking next year in 2022. Glenn might have a better date on that. Glenn? Okay. Yeah, if you couldn't hear Glenn, he said we are applying for a grant for that project. So hopefully hear that in the next month or two and get some lettings going on that project. So I think a lot of the design has already been done.
So that will connect to 4th Street at some point, going south? Or
No.
off of Main Street, is that what I understand?
No, it'll just be the intersection of Main and Fifth.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what you said
Yeah.
then. Okay.
It's more of widening Fifth Street and making turn lanes than it is extending it per se.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Mike.
Yes.
Representing the Boynton Street Community Center Board, I was just wondering, is there any goals to improve that center down there? You know, because I know that we still try to hold on to the services that they provide for the community, but as far as the improving the community and things of that nature, what are the goals for the city going forward and, you know, developing that area a little bit more too?
Well, we have preliminary interior drawings to add bathrooms in there, renovate that facility, because I think most of it, except for when it was added on several years ago, all of that paneling and everything is original.
Okay.
Rehabilitate the kitchen, repave the parking lot. And I don't know about the part yet because we didn't get far enough to get an actual cost estimate on it complete. Again, before COVID kind of took a bite out of timelines and everything else, is to build a half gym back there in between where the building's at and the ball field. But the council will have to decide that at some point. What I do hope from moving forward is that the board can establish a very clear vision on what you want it to be.
Exactly.
And I'd be thrilled to hear that.
All right.
But yes, we do have those plans, and at minimum, the interior of the building needs to be redone.
Exactly. Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, is there anything else to come before the council? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.